welcome to Sarah's Stamping Retreat. Today we're going to be creating some fun Christmas cards using a bunch of heat embossing techniques, and to do that we are going to use the kit from the latest Close Creative Cards magazine box kit. So in the kit you get the magazine with loads of ideas for how to use the kit, but you also get this really big stamp set. So you've got a load of sentiments, and you've got kind of everything from this kind of large one that's have a holly jolly Christmas, quite a statement one, to like small happy Christmas, season's greetings. So you've got a bunch of nice ones there, and then you've got these little bits of kind of florals and snowflakes, some holly, and then you can see you've got the flowers, but you've also got extra petals. So if you wanted to layer those up and make the flowers really dimensional, then you could do that as well. So it's a lovely stamp set. Then we've got this die set. So you've got a bunch of flora and fauna type dies there. Then we've got this gorgeous Merry Christmas kind of statement embossing folder. Then we've got this stencil, and it's really nice because you've got different sizes of these trees. So you've got ones for different size of cards, or you could obviously combine them into one card. And then you've got your paper pack. Now mine's a bit messed up, so I'm going to flick through it, but you'll see there's kind of like doubles in the wrong places because it's a bit messed up. So we've got these cutter parts and the stripes, more cutter parts in the green colourway. You've got these blue trees which are actually upside down in my pack. Then you've got the tartan, got some florals, and you can see I've got my multiples of these here, but they usually start after the middle. I think this is where my new ones start. Got these. Love these navy base ones. So it's a really pretty paper pack as well. So that normally comes in the middle of your magazine. So you can see it's really good value for money. So let's get started with some cards. So I've got loads of really fun things to share with you today. The first thing we're going to do is an Emboss Resist technique. So I've got a piece of Unisolar White 110 cardstock, and it is 8.5 by 5.5 inches. And I'm going to use this little snowflake stamp from the included set, and I'm just going to stamp across the whole thing with that stamp with my VersaMark ink. I'm making sure to stamp off the sides as well, because I think that gives us a more organic look. So then I've got embossing powder in the clear gloss. I'm going to just sprinkle that all over. Huge tub of embossing powder, so it tends to let quite a lot out at a time. Then I'm going to heat that up. So I realise that up till now this probably looks like nothing on camera because we have just used clear ink on white cardstock with clear embossing powder, so it doesn't show up very well, but now's where the magic happens. So I'm going to go over it with some Broken China Distress Oxide ink. And you can see straight away that those snowflakes start showing through. So I'm going to go in with a towel, a piece of paper towel with foam cloth, and just buff some of those up to get some of that excess ink off. You can see with these ones versus these ones how much of a difference that makes. I know some people like to use a damp cloth to do that. I prefer a dry cloth because otherwise it affects the ink underneath. So then I want to create this into a side stepper card. So I'm going to put this into my trimmer this way, and I want to line it up at 2 3/4, so halfway across this piece here. And my piece of card is 8.5 inches long, and I want an inch at each end. I want 2 3/4 inches, and I want to cut that from 1 inch to 5 1/4 inches. So I've got this slit, and then where this 1 inch is here, I want to put that in at 1 inch, and all these score lines I'm only going to do on this half of the card from the line where that cut is. So let's pop my cutting blade over there, and then I'm going to score at 1 inch just to that line. So I'm scoring back to 2 3/4. Then I'm going to go in at 2 inches. I'm going to do the exact same. I'm going to just score back to 2 3/4. And then I'm also going to go in at 5 1/4 inches. And I'm going to score that one as well. And then on the other side, I'm going to score at 4 1/4 inches. So this time I'm going from here to 2 3/4 inches. So you can see I've just got that one score line on this side and the 3 score lines on that side. So this score line on this side I want to make into a mountain fold. So that's going to go like that. Then on this side I want to bend this one down. I want to bend this one up. And I want to bend that one up too. So then we've got this cute stepper shape. So then I'm going to use my Ultimate jet black ink to just ink up the stem. Again, this is from the set and it's the one that says it's the most wonderful time of the year. And then I'm going to colour it using my alcohol markers. These are my Ultimate markers, so I'm using olive and moss for the leaves. And I've got ruby red that I'm going to use for the berries and the ribbon. And I'll just use vineyard berry for a bit of shading. And then I've got maple yellow and fresh lemon for the bills. So then I can cut that out. So then we've got our cute sentiment. And I've also cut some of these trees from the paper pack. I've actually put some cardstock on the back before I cut them out so that they're really nice and stiff. So obviously it is a paper pack rather than a cardstock pack. So I'm going to glue those on. And I'm just going to pop this up with some foam pads. So then we've got this really pretty side stepper card. So then for my next card I'm going to do some embossing onto vellum. So I'm going to cover the vellum with this. You want to be quite liberal with your embossing body on vellum. And then I'm just going to use this smaller flower stamp and I'm going to stamp 2 of these onto the vellum. That second one didn't come out quite as well as I'd hoped, so let's do that one again. And then I'm going to use my Wow Opaque Bright White Superfine Embossing Powder. So then I'm going to heat this up, but the important thing is not to leave the heat gun too long on the vellum. So I'm going to make sure it's really hot before I ever put it towards the vellum, because otherwise the vellum's going to warp. The other thing to note when you're heat embossing vellum is that you want one that is heat resistant. So I'm using this Anita's plain white vellum and that seems to work really well for this. So then I'm just going to cut these out with my scissors. And then I've already made another 2 of those and 2 of the large ones. I'm going to put those to the side for a second. And then I've got a 5-inch square card blank made of bright pink cardstock, and then I've got green, blue and orange. So each of those measure 4.5 by 1.5 inches. And I'm just going to glue them onto my card blank. So this is going to be a completely non-traditional Christmas card. It's going to have flowers, bright colours. So you could completely change the sentiment and have it as a birthday card if you want something a bit more traditional. I think it's really cute, whatever you use it for. So I'm just going to kind of bend these a little bit just to give them a little more shape. You can see I'm not being particularly gentle with them. This vellum is quite robust. So then I'm just going to add some little foam pads to one of the flowers and layer the other one on top. Then I want to cut an aperture using circle die into the corner of my card. And that circle that I cut measures around about 2.5 inches. So then I'm just going to trace lightly around this circle into the centre so that I know where I want to stamp my sentiment. And then I'm going to use this one that says, "With love at Christmas." And I stamped mine not quite straight, so what I've done is I'm just cut another circle the same size from the pink cardstock that I've used for my card blank, and I'm just going to stamp this on there, and then I'm just going to stick it over the one that I stamped not quite right. I'm going to use the white embossing powder again. I think that's one of the beautiful things about card making, is that there aren't many things that you can't fix by just sticking something over the top. So let's glue this in. So then I've got some of these gorgeous Pinkfresh Studio glitter drops in Magenta, and I'm going to add some of those to the centre of my flowers. So I'm going to glue these onto my card. Then that card's finished. For the next card, I'm going to use my embossing folder, and this one's going to be a pretty simple card, but it's a really lovely technique. So I'm going to cover this piece of white cardstock. This white cardstock is 6 inches by 4¼ inches. So it's slightly bigger than my card front, and that's because I want to cut it down afterwards. And I'm going to use a heat embossing technique on it using the embossing folder. So I'm going to use the front of the embossing folder. I'm going to grab my silicone mat just as a surface for my VersaMark ink, and I'm going to use the VersaMark ink refill. I like to do this because you can get a nice thick layer then. I'm going to roll this through that to cover the brayer. I'm rolling it through several times to make sure every bit of the brayer is covered, and then I'm going to roll this across the front of my embossing folder. I'm rolling it several times just to make sure I've got it all, and then I'm going to take my piece of cardstock, I'm going to put it on this side of the embossing folder, and I'm going to close this down and pop it through my die cutting machine. So you can see I've got this lovely deep emboss, and then I'm going to just add on some black wow embossing powder. So let's heat this up. So now you've got this gorgeous glossy black outline with the white embossed image. I'm just going to cut that down so that it fits to my card front, and you'll see like the edges of this are all just slightly like not as polished as the rest of it. So that's why I wanted to create it bigger first and then cut it down to fit. Now that's cut down, I'm going to colour it in. So I'm going to use my Ultra New Artist markers again. I'm going to use Olive and Moss for the leaves. And the lovely thing about having the black embossed outline as well is that it doesn't really matter if you go over the edges, so you can kind of do some really quick colouring. It's just not going to show up on that black embossing. I've got the ruby red. I'm going to go fresh lemon for the stars. And then I'm going with the desert night blue for the Christmas. And I love that this just takes that letterpress heat embossing technique that one stage further. It makes a really cool card front. But also I bet that you've got everything that you need to make this in your card making stash. Because you could always make it with, say, gold embossing powder if you don't have black or something like that. Also, this technique would work just as well with water-based markers as alcohol-based. You don't need the alcohol-based ones. And then I'm going to go with Rubelite for the Mary and the ribbon. I really love how that just pops, so I'm just going to glue that onto my card front. That's just an A6 card front, so it is 4 1/8 by 5 7/8 inches. So I'm going to make some flowers, and I've cut these for the centre of the flowers. So I've cut 2 of these ones and 1 of these ones, and those are from the dies from the coordinating die set. But I want to heat emboss these, so I'm going to cover them in my VersaMark ink. And then I'm going to use this pretty in pink glitter embossing powder, and that's from Wow Embossing and Stamps by Chloe. I'm just covering those in that. I'm just going to shake off a little. I'm just going to use the end of this tool to hold them in place while I heat emboss them. And then I want these really covered in glitter, so I'm going to go back in and do the same process another 2 times. Then we've got these really cool, super sparkly, quite thick embellishments. I'm going to just bend them up because they're going to be our flower centres. So then I'm going to stamp some flowers in black ink. So I'm going to stamp 2 of these large ones, and then I'm going to stamp 4 of the smaller ones. So then I'm going to colour the flowers with my Rubelite pen. Don't need to worry too much about the middle because we're going to cover those up with our die cuts. So I'm going to add a little shading with the raspberry pen, and I'm just doing it really roughly. I'm not taking too much time on it. It's just to add a little bit of dimension. So then I'm going to cut these out, and usually when I'm cutting things out I leave a little white border around. But these are quite easy shapes to make and I want a nice clean look, so I'm going to cut them out on the lines. So then I can put my flowers together, and again I'm just going to kind of like bend these around a little bit just to give it a little bit of shape. If you've got flower shaping tools you can use those, but I tend to just use my fingers. So I'm putting each layer together with a foam pad, and then I'm going to glue in the centre. And then because I'm gluing onto a glitter, I'm going to use a glue dot to add one of these glitter enamel dots, the ones that I was using earlier from Pinkfresh Studios, into the middle. And I've got 2 5.5-inch circles that I've cut from Nina Solar White cardstock, and use those for our card base. So then I'm going to stamp this Holly Jolly Christmas, but I'm going to stamp it slightly off centre because the flowers are going to take up quite a big part of this side of the card. I want to make sure that I can get this in here, so I want to stamp that round. So I'm going to stamp this in black ink. I'm actually just going to practice stamp it on another piece of cardstock first. And then I want to stamp this holly around. I want to just make sure it starts in the right place. So I'm going to just place these on so I know where I want them. And then I can start these from right here. So I'm going to colour my stamped images, and I'm just going to use the same colours that I've been using throughout. So again I'll be using olive and moss for the leaves. So then we can create our card blank. So I take the other circle and I'm just going to line it up at 1/2 inch. I'm going to cut that 1/2 inch off. That is going to be where we stand it at the bottom so that it doesn't rock and roll. So then I'm going to line this up at the 4.5 inch mark there so I can make sure that I'm scoring parallel, and I'm going to score that there. So we're scoring 1/2 inch at the top. Then I'm going to bend that over and I'm going to line that up so I know it's nice and straight on my board, and that will help me to put the front on nice and straight. So then I can put this on. And I have a quick check that it looks right before the glue dries properly. And that looks fine to me. So then I'm going to glue on the flowers. I'm going to start with this big one. And then I'm going to put our two smaller ones either side of it. And then I'm just going to add some more of these glitter drops over the top of some of these berries. So I'm just going to pick out certain ones. I'm not going to put them on all of them. So then that's that card finished. I think the glittery gems on this side help to kind of like tie in the flowers. It looks really pretty. So for my final card, I'm going to make an easel card. So I've got a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card blank, and then I'm just going to score that across at 2 3/4 inches. So I'll make my easel, and then I've got this piece which is 1/4 inch smaller than my card blank. So then you could absolutely use glue for this, but to save time I'm going to cover this in some adhesive sheet. And then I'm just going to lay these strips across. So these are 1/4 inch strips of cardstock, and they're all in the colours that we've been using for all of our cards today. So then I'm going to trim the ends off, and I'm going to use the other ends of these to complete the pattern. So we've got our stripy piece that I've just trimmed down, and then I'm also going to create some stripes at the bottom of here as well. So I'm going to do this one with glue because I don't want to put any adhesive where I don't want it. So then I can trim these as well. So then I want to use this floral tree, and I'm going to cover a section of this green cardstock, this old olive from Stampin' Up, with my embossing buddy, and then I'm going to tape on this middle tree. I want to use the floral tree, and then I'm going to put some of this VersaMark refill out. I'm going to use my blending sponge. I'm just going to dab that in there. I'm going to dab it onto the stencil. And to be fair, it's probably advisable to tape this down rather than just holding it. And then I've got this Wow embossing powder in polished gold. I'm going to cover that with that. And then I'm going to just melt that embossing powder. You can see that looks really nice on there. And then I'm just going to cut this out, and I'm going to cut the star out separately from the rest because the tree doesn't actually properly fit on my card blank. So I'm going to cut the star out separately and move it down a little bit so that it does fit on my card. So then I'm going to add some of these glitter dots onto my tree. I'm going to use them for the centre of the flowers. And I'm also going to pick out just a few of these dots that are in the background. I'm not going to do them all. And actually I was going to put some dots in the background, but I think I'd like it just as it is now. So I'm going to stick with that. So then I'm going to add this to the card. But obviously I only want the glue to go halfway. So I know I only want the glue to go up to there. So I'm going to pop some foam pads on the back of there. And don't do what I did and put your tree on when the glue's still wet on the gems. I've just had to re-glue a couple of those on. So then I'm just going to add a little foam pad behind the star. And then I can add that back onto the top of my tree. And then I'm going to use this Happy Christmas sentiment. And then I'm going to use some of this pink cardstock. And I'm going to heat emboss that Happy Christmas sentiment onto it. I'm going to use the same gold embossing powder I used for the tree. So I've cut that down, and then I'm just putting some foam strips on the back of it to pop it up, because that's going to be the stopper for our easel. And that stands up like that. And we've got a really cute card. And then I can bring in all of today's cards. So I really hope that you enjoyed today's cards. Let me know in the comments which is your favourite. If you enjoyed today's video, I'd really appreciate it if you could click like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got a new video available. All of the products that I've used for today's cards are listed in the description below, and you can also find a link there to my blog where you can find a picture supply list if that helps you find what you're looking for. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.